CBS Atlanta News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Brandon Rudette. Today we are taking a look at a problem here in Atlanta. We're talking about homelessness. A new national report shows despite a sluggish economy, homelessness in the U.S. fell 1% nationwide from 2009 to 2011. Last year, there were 636,000 homeless people in the U.S. That is a drop from just over 647,000 in 2009. But that number could start going the other way. Federal assistance is running out, and debt and deficit reduction efforts, they have started to shrink aid. Georgia's homeless population has grown 5.7% since 2010. But here in Atlanta, those numbers are decreasing. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development reports that there were 6,800 homeless people last year. That is down from over 7,000 in 2010. You know, when you hear the word homeless, you probably think of those who are chronically homeless. Well, those people who are out on the street who beg for money and usually have some kind of disability. Well, last month, Capitol Police removed a group of homeless people who were camping out on the grounds of the state capitol. Officials said that the conditions created a public health issue because of the buildup of transit human waste near those encampments. Those who are chronically homeless, that's just one of the extremes we're going to be talking about. Many people find themselves temporarily homeless, and that's who the Atlanta Children's Shelter serves. Allison Morgan is the shelter's social services director, joining us this morning. Allison, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You know, I think the public perception is when you think of homeless people, you think of those who have been out on the streets for years and years and years and really know no other way of life, the panhandlers that come up to you on the street. That's not the case. Right,
exactly. And who we serve, we actually serve homeless families. So women, it could be two-parent households with children. And what we provide at the Atlanta Children's Shelter is free early child care to homeless families. And it's basically in order to move out of their situation, move on to self-sufficiency, they've got to have the child care. Child care is very expensive. If you're going to get a job, you're going to need that first. So that's what we provide.
When you've seen, how long have you been with the program? How long have you been working kind of on this issue?
Here in Atlanta for 4 years.
All right. So going back 4 years ago to where you're seeing now and kind of watching the height of the economy and then seeing the economy really take a turn for the worse. Mm-hmm. Do you see more people coming into the shelters now because of the economy, because maybe they were living paycheck to paycheck and then suddenly that paycheck wasn't coming anymore?
Yes, certainly job loss is at the top of the list for causes of homelessness for our families. And for the past few years in Atlanta, unemployment has hovered around 10%. And it's difficult. It's difficult out there. Average market rate for a two-bedroom in Atlanta is going to be around $16. You'd have to make at least $16 an hour to afford that. So if you're just making minimum wage, it's not enough. So it's tough.
So when people come to you, right, and let's say it's a mom and a dad and they do have kids, the purpose is not just to give them shelter and give them food, but also give them programs, things that they can do to really find another job, right?
Exactly. And we have an employment program at the Atlanta Children's Shelter. We work on helping them develop readiness skills to get back into the workplace, provide them referrals to get clothing for interviews, help with resume writing, and just get those skills and get them prepped in order to get that job. And then we'll reach out to area companies to try to bring them in and to work with us so that we can match them and find good placements.
Do you see success stories?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we every year we have a big banquet where we have all of our achievers come across the stage and tell their stories, and I have a really great job because I'm able to really see these men and women and these families blossom over time, because we've just got some really talented people who've just fell on some hard times and don't. Like you and I, if we might lose our job, we've got a support system in place. And really the difference between the families we work with and people who are not homeless is just they lack that support system.
So when people come to you, and I'm sure, like you said, you've seen a lot of success stories, how do you get them prepared for that next job? When you say get them skill ready?
Right. Well, we have workshops that we have them go through. So we'll talk about communication skills. We'll talk about how to develop a professional persona. how to talk in an interview. And also to kind of raise up self-esteem, because going through the system it's not an easy process. So we're trying to help people build up their confidence back.
And talk about, public perception, right? That's a battle in and of itself, isn't it? Because the stereotype we have is the person, when we're at a stoplight, they come up to your window and they're asking for money, right?
Yes.
Or those who, you see them on the street corners of some of the streets in Atlanta, and they just kind of, that is, what their life, not necessarily what you're seeing day in and day out.
Exactly, and that stigma is difficult. And what we really try to teach the parents that we work with is not to internalize that homelessness as part of their identity. That's just the situation that they're in right now, and try to get focused just on the goals and moving forward and not get stuck in that.
And I think what a lot of people also don't realize, right, in today's economy, a lot of people do live paycheck to paycheck. I think it was just a startling statistic.
Yeah.
It was like 60 or 70% of people said that they would be homeless if suddenly they lost their job.
Yes.
They wouldn't be able to pay their rent.
Right, and we've heard those stories many times. I mean, something happens, a child gets sick, you have to miss, some time at work, and suddenly, we're back out there trying to get a job in this difficult economy, and it's not easy.
Are the shelters full right now?
They remain full, yes.
I mean,
you
how
typically
hard is
have
it?
to get on a waiting list, and it may be weeks. It could be months to get into a transitional housing program.
And
so
how
it's
difficult is it to get into one of those programs? If somebody, is out there homeless and you're trying to do the best for them, right, and try and get them into a good program, but the list is full, what do they do?
We do not have enough beds for what we need. Sometimes we'll try to link people to organizations who can get them maybe back to a family member in another state, and try to get them back to some support system they might have had in the past.
But there really is a problem here in Georgia.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, our unemployment rate is typically higher than what it is
Right.
nationally.
Right.
It's just kind of the way the world is here for people here in Georgia.
Yeah, and the main thing is yes, it is families, it is children, okay? And they are our most vulnerable, and we need to think about that.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what we're going to be talking about later in this show, the children who are also really victims of homelessness. They didn't choose this way of life. It's just kind of what the cards that they've been dealt, and trying to make sure that they're not too scarred by this, and to make sure that they're safe
Yes.
and they have food in their stomach and that they get an education. Allison, we appreciate your time with us this morning.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You got it. When we come back, we are going to be focusing on children, what it's like growing up homeless.
She's on sports.
5. Mhm.
The fastest group of homeless people is children under 9 years of age. This is video from last August when Mayor Kasim Reed visited the Atlanta Children's Shelter and read to a group of preschoolers in a classroom at that shelter. According to the Metro Atlanta Task Force for the Homeless, Atlanta is the poorest city in the U.S. for children. That means more children in Atlanta live in poverty than in any other city. And Nadia Payne is the child care director at the Atlanta Children's Shelter. Nadia, thank you for being here this morning. I appreciate it. And this really is a tough topic for a lot of people to talk about. We are talking about young children here who are homeless.
Right.
What is it like? What have you seen? How bad is it now compared to the way it was 10 years ago?
Well, a lot of the things we see when we have children come into our program could be, malnutrition, or could be language delays, things like that. So when they come to us, we immediately try to assess those needs, with the parents. And partnering with our social services team, they really, give us a comprehensive guide about what's going on with the family, so that in the child care facility, we know how we need to approach teaching this child, because a lot of what we'll have to deal with, we have to really start at the beginning and figure out, what this child is feeling, what's going on with them, so we can lesson plan appropriately and making sure, we're addressing their developmental goals.
What happens when a family comes to a shelter, right? You've got a mom and your dad and you've got kids. And, the interesting part of this, the fastest number, the rising number is children under 9 years old. This is one of the most precious times of a child's life, right? You're learning more. Your brain is able to learn a lot more. And is the number one priority getting them into school, getting them into classes? How do you deal with such a delicate situation?
Certainly our number one priority is getting them ready for kindergarten, because we service children that are ages 0 to 5. So, our goal is to get them, comfortable with self-awareness, with reading, with writing, with all those kinds of skills. So, and we start that in our infant room. With just facial awareness and shapes and sounds and letters, reading to them, really getting them, in tune to our curriculum and our program. And it's very comprehensive. So each classroom that the children will matriculate through, it builds on each skills that they've learned. So by the time they'll finish our preschool program, they're confident, they're aware of their abilities and skills, and they're ready to go to kindergarten, and they do well. So we really try to focus on that school readiness from day one.
How hard is it, self-esteem wise? We all know how hard it is to be just a normal kid, right, at school.
Right.
And now you've got to help teach kids to have an extra thick layer of skin on them because they are homeless. How do you kind of teach kids and really kind of handle that situation as kids kind of grow up?
Well, in our program, our program is honestly not different than any other, child care center that you would go to. Because again, the homelessness is just a situation. It's not their identity. It's not who they are. So a lot of people are surprised to find when they tour our facility that it looks just like a normal school. So, we show the children no difference there, because we want the transition to be seamless. We want them, to have that experience with circle time, with group time, so that, they're not isolated or singled out. And, rather than going to another program and saying, oh, well, I want to go back to the shelter, it's, I want to go back to my old school. I miss my old school. You'll hear that a lot because the children, know no difference. And we work really hard at modeling our program after some of the other programs you might be more familiar with, like a KinderCare or a Goddard or something like that.
Do you see success? Do you see success rates, successful stories
every
in your
day.
program?
Every day. Each and every day. There's always something new. Children are learning, they're doing, they're saying, exploring, and you can really see it because their face just lights up. They get so excited about a new skill that they've learned, can't wait to tell their parents about it, a new drawing they did, something like that. So it's wonderful, and we see that every single day, which is why this work is so rewarding, because we know that what we're doing is directly affecting their lives immediately.
And do you see the impact it's had maybe even on the parents, almost like a stress relief to know that their children, I'm sure, is their number one priority when they come to a shelter, right? I'm sure that there's some sense of, they probably feel shame too, right? That they have to be there and that they have to have their children kind of live like this, but to be able to have their children at least have a sense of normalcy, right, being provided to them. It's got to be somewhat uplifting for them.
It is, and we work really hard to create that partnership, with the families, because we need their help in educating the child. We welcome our families into the classroom just to kind of help bridge that relationship, because it's not enough for what we do, 12 hours that we're open. We need that to kind of continue at home, so we make sure sure we give the parents activities to do and, you know, really bridge that relationship, because we want there to be consistency in what the children are learning, but we want the parent also to take an active role. So once they're out of our program, they can continue to be an advocate for their child's education. So not only do we work with the children, you know, and helping them build the confidence and the skills, but working with the family to teach them, you know, how to keep it going once they leave us, because they're not going to be with us forever.
Yeah, and you know, we've seen because of the economy, right? A lot of people are now homeless for months on end, and then they can kind of get a job and get their feet going again.
Right.
Have you ever had a situation where you've had to turn a kid away because of overcrowding?
No, our waiting list, you know, usually is not very long. We're usually able to kind of keep, you know, the cycles going, which is a good thing. You know, we're always usually have a place to send our family, which is good. And even if for the moment we might be full in the classroom, you know, we're never out of options. We know other facilities that we can connect them with to get them placed. So that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Well, Nadia, you guys are doing really great work. And
Thank you.
It's got to be very difficult and challenging for a lot of the kids as well. So.
It can be, but, you know, we just work really hard to create that sense of normalcy and get them prepared for school readiness.
All right, Nadia Payne, thanks for joining us this
Thank
morning.
you for
We
having
appreciate
me.
it. And it is hard enough raising kids today, but what if you had to do it without your own home? Coming up next, we're going to sit down with a mom to talk to her about her story. Stay with us. Welcome back now to Public Affairs on Peach. This morning we are taking a look at homelessness, not only in America, but right here in Georgia, where the number of homeless has climbed more than 5% in just the past 2 years. The top causes of homelessness, job loss, and domestic violence. Robin Jones is here with us this morning, and Robin and I were just talking briefly here. Domestic violence, part of your story.
Correct.
Correct. You went to a homeless shelter in what year? 2009?
2009.
2009. You find yourself as a mother of
Three.
As a mother of three. You're in a homeless shelter. How was it for you? What was it like? Take me back to 2009.
Well, for me, it was difficult because we didn't have own beds, little stuff. We didn't know where we was going to cook our next meal. So that my main thing was making sure my children ate, they were warm. They didn't have to be standing outside and things of that nature. Mentally, it was kind of traumatizing because you never know what you're going to do, what your day is going to be like, who you may run into, what may happen. You don't know if it's going to rain all day and you have to be stuck outside all day. You don't know if your one-year-old child is going to be screaming and hollering all day because they're uncomfortable. You always try to keep your children comfortable, and that was my main thing when we were in our situation.
Okay, so you make it to a homeless shelter, right?
Yes.
What was it like when you finally made it into the shelter and having to raise 3 kids in a shelter and also get your life back together?
Well, it was tedious. I'm gonna say that, but it's not really that tedious. I'm gonna say that much also because if you're a parent, you know you want to put your children first. You do what you have to do step by step. You tell your children, well, this is only temporary. You tell them that we'll be better later. It might not be right now, but everything happens in time. Not our time, but in time.
But in time.
In time.
And it's very good that you say that because it is very,
Yes.
very true. So you're in a shelter. Did you get prepared for job interviews? Did you get prepared for that next step while you were there?
Yes, at Atlanta Children's Shelter, they helped me a lot. When I first came to Atlanta, I saw a sign saying Atlanta Children's Shelters helps people that are homeless. So what I did was I called them and I called them and I called them till I got in touch with somebody. That didn't happen, so I just went down there and I spoke with someone and they had a space available for my baby. He was about 18 months at the time. And we worked well. They helped me speak better, at least I think so. They helped me find clothing that, you know, was appropriate for job interviews and that nature. And I did come in contact with a lot of nice people at the same time. And it helped me build my spirits up, make my self-presentation better.
And so you go out there into the workforce, and we
Yeah.
are happy to report
That we are working.
that we are working.
Yes, we work for a nonprofit organization called Georgia Radio Reading Service, and they read to the visually impaired and physically handicapped via radio.
Nice. So now
Yes.
you're doing service work.
Yes, and that's the best part about my job. I like that I'm able to help someone else when someone helped me.
It's
So-
got to be fulfilling.
It is. It is. I think everybody should at least try it at least once.
That is great. So how are your kids doing?
Well, they're doing great. My son now is 4, and he attends school at the Andrew Young YMCA, and he loves it. He misses the Atlanta Children's Shelter. He calls it his old school. I want to go back to my old school. And I have a teenager, and she's adjusting well. She's adjusting well.
It's got to be a little difficult, right, for a teenager,
Oh, yes.
right? And
Being a teenager itself.
being a teenager is really hard.
It is.
And also being a teenager and kind of living in a homeless shelter, it's part of reality, and it is happening out there. You know, what advice do you give to other moms out there who may be homeless, who do have children and are doing the best that they can to raise their children, but they find themselves in a place of homelessness? And there have got to be days that I'm sure you can relate to where you just feel like there is no hope.
They have been, but you don't hold on to those times. You say, okay, I feel this way right now. 5 minutes from now, you let it go. You say, you put it in his hands, and you say, okay, we're going to move on from this. And stay positive. Stay positive. Speak positivity into your life. You wake up in the morning, you say, we're going to make it this morning. Positive things going to happen. We're going to find a job. Even if you don't sit on it. Just pick it up. It's like, okay, we're going to take this with us. We're going to keep moving.
I like that you say live in this moment.
This
right?
moment.
Live in this moment. And that necessarily, if you're having a bad day, this moment is not,
It's not
going
gonna
to
stay forever.
define you.
It's
right?
not.
How powerful has your faith been through all this?
Great. Because, like, even at the Atlanta Children's Shelter, I've always talked to women and men there that they say, we're having such a hard time. And positivity is the best thing. No matter what you're going through, financially, mentally, physically, stay positive. Put positive things in your man. Wake up in the morning and say, today is going to be a beautiful day, no matter what somebody says or does.
Now,
and you have to do that.
And do you try and how hard is it to try and get your teenager to live through that as well?
you have jokes. Teenagers, that's a whole nother telecast because they don't want to listen to what we have to say. They seem to think that we don't know what we're talking about. But we've been teenagers before, so we already know these things. And you just have to hold their hand and tell them, say, okay, I know you're resisting right now, but I'm going to stick right by you. You stick by your children no matter what. And tell them, like, it's going to get better. You might be mad at me today. Later on, you'll feel better. and we'll be talking. And that's how it happens. They'll be mad at you in the morning. They come home from school. They're like, Mommy, guess what? I was like, oh, a new child came.
All right, Robin, really quickly here,
Okay.
your life now compared to it was 3 years ago.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I've met so many nice people here in Atlanta. I love my job at Georgia Radio Reading Service. I love that the Atlanta Children's Shelter gave me the hands-on to do what I needed to do. They just told me, like, do what you like to do. Tell people what your experience is. And I have, and it helps me. It helps me know that just because you're going through hard times, they're not going to last long. And they don't.
Almost like it's turned out to be a blessing.
It is.
Taught you new skills and a new career and a new life.
They have. And
right.
I want to put that out there for the world, for everybody else to do also.
Robin Jones, I appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
on the show
Thank you for having
and
me.
seeing a success story right here in person. It
In
is always
Atlanta.
great. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We're coming right back after a break. The Atlanta's Children's Shelter offers comprehensive services to homeless children and their families. To get help, you must be The Atlanta's Children's Shelter offers comprehensive services to homeless children and their families. To get help, you must be staying in a homeless shelter at the time you apply. If you're interested, you can call 404-892-3713 and ask to speak to a case manager for intake. The Children's Shelter also works with organizations like the Atlanta Community Food Bank, the United Way, and the Georgia Law Center for the Homeless. We're going to be posting contact information for the Atlanta's Children's Shelter and its partners on our Facebook page. Be sure to like Public Affairs on Peach on Facebook. If you have a topic you'd like to see us cover here on the show, let us know about it. Send an email to publicaffairs@cbsatlanta.com. That'll do it for this week's edition of Public Affairs on Peach. We'll see you back here next Sunday morning. Have a great weekend. The Atlanta's Children's Shelter offers comprehensive services to homeless children and their families. To get help, you must be staying in a homeless shelter at the time you apply. If you are interested or know somebody that is, call 404-892-3713. Ask to speak to a case manager for intake. The Children's Shelter also works with organizations like the Atlanta Community Food Bank, the United Way, and the Georgia Law Center for the Homeless. We're going to be posting contact information for the Atlanta Children's Shelter and its partners on our Facebook page. Be sure to like Public Affairs on Peach on Facebook. If you have a topic you'd like to see us cover here on the show, let us know about it. Send us an email to publicaffairs@cbsatlanta.com. That'll do it for this week's edition of Public Affairs on Peach. We'll see you back here next Sunday morning. Have a great weekend.